Alright guys, thanks for tuning in to part 2 of the JFK series. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down why the Mafia or the Italian mob were the ones involved in the killing. Now of course, we don't know if this is true or not, this is just a conspiracy theory. However, I'm going to be pretty much just analyzing why this theory exists in the first place and if it holds any ground. So, the way that we want to look at this is that there's 5 main points that kind of give this conspiracy any legitimacy. The first one is the motive. So really with the motive, the whole idea is that, JFK's brother, Robert Kennedy, he was the attorney general at the time, and he had a huge campaign called the Get Hoffa campaign. This campaign was really just heavily targeting crime, organized crime, heavily targeting mafia, heavily targeting mobsters, and the whole idea was that they were wiretapping and conducting surveillance on mafia to bust up their crime syndicates. And it was a really big campaign. They put a lot of money into this, and obviously the mafia was very upset. I mean, they were getting in the way of a lot of the mafia's progress. Understandably so, the mafia would seek some form of retaliation. So that is really one of the biggest points that comes up, is just that his brother had a huge campaign against the mafia. There is a second motive, but it doesn't hold nearly as much ground. That it's basically that there was this lady named Elizabeth Judy or something like that. I don't remember the name off the top of my head, but what I do remember is that apparently JFK was having an affair with this woman, and this woman was also like married to or having an affair with some big mobster named Sam Giancana. So obviously the mobster was upset that she was also having something going on with JFK, so he had him killed off. There's like literally no evidence for that at all. It's just something that people have brought up. It's been brought up over the years. I don't think that that's true, but hey, I'm just relaying the information. Don't shoot the messenger. The second point is Oswald's connections. So if you don't already know this, Lee Harvey Oswald is the person who's accredited with killing the president. He, at the time, after some investigation was done, was found to have been involved with the mafia to a certain extent. It's unknown whether or not he was some high-level guy within the mafia, but it's just known that he was involved, and that he also had connections to his own killer, Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby is the man who went and killed Lee Harvey Oswald before Lee Harvey Oswald could face trial. So it raised a lot of concerns. It raised a lot of eyebrows as to why would this guy why would this known mafia member, Lee Harvey Oswald was like a lesser known guy, but Jack Ruby was known to have been in the mafia, had been arrested before for participating in organized crime and racketeering and things like that. So why would he go out of his way to kill off Lee Harvey Oswald? There's obviously a lot of kind of concern there in terms of what the reasoning is behind it, and some people think that Jack Ruby did that because the mafia needed him to, and they needed Lee Harvey Oswald to stay quiet, and they knew that he wasn't going to, so they had him killed off. But that is really the second main point. The third main point is a little more broad, it's a little more general, and it's that there was a lack of evidence. Really what people point to here are a couple of things. One, there were a lot of different eyewitness reports to the actual assassination. People were saying that they heard gunshots coming from multiple levels, from different places. So obviously that would indicate that there were multiple shooters, not just one. It would also mean that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't act alone. It means that he acted with a group of other people. Now, with that being said, that would also kind of invalidate what the Warren Commission report puts out. And just as a quick little summary, the Warren Commission report was basically the government investigation of the assassination itself. And a lot of people reject the Warren Commission report because there's a lot of holes that they find in it, which we'll kind of talk about in a little bit with the magic bullet theory, which does play a role in this conspiracy theory. But yeah, really just a lack of evidence. People were unsatisfied with the Warren Commission report's results. They really didn't like how certain things were contradictory in terms of eyewitness testimonies, and then of course what the report was putting out, and they felt like things were kind of fabricated to fit a certain narrative or agenda, obviously to kind of cover things up. But that gets us to the next thing, which is the magic bullet theory. The Warren Commission report put out this bullet, like a picture of a bullet, of the bullet that killed the president, and the bullet was completely intact. Now, it's not possible for a bullet to remain intact if it were to go through flesh and bone. It would be very hard for that bullet not to warp. It would be even harder for that bullet to hit bone and not fragment into pieces. This bullet was pretty much just untouched. Like, it was essentially like a clean bullet. Now, obviously, that raises a lot of concern as well, and people from any conspiracy theory kind of point to this as just something that is wrong in the Warren Commission report, because it is. I mean, if we're looking at it for what it is, if we're looking at it objectively, there's no reason that the bullet should have been that intact and that clean. Obviously, the Warren Commission report did not kind of specify why the bullet was like that. It's just something people pointed to after the report came out. But of course, with the whole idea that the Mafia killed off the president, it would make sense if there was some type of cover-up, essentially, in terms of kind of getting the blame off them, getting the spotlight off them. But the Warren Commission report kind of fails to answer the question about the magic bullet. The fourth point kind of relates to the third point. The fourth point kind of relates to the third point in the fact that there are, conflicting testimonies of people and eyewitnesses. But the big thing here would be people like Ed Hoffman. They reported that they heard 4 gunshots. They heard 2 coming from the building where Lee Harvey Oswald was, and then 2 coming from what's called the grassy knoll. It's just like the separate area right next to where the motorcade was passing through. So obviously, when you put out a statement like that, it's going to have some weight to it, especially right after the president is assassinated. And there were a couple of other people who, similar to Ed Hoffman, said the exact same thing. But the Warren Commission report completely just nullifies that. It says that there was only one shooter, Lee Harvey Oswald, and he acted alone. There was no other people shooting from other angles. Now, of course, there's a complete lack of evidence in terms of whether or not that is true. However, the odd thing is that the people who put out those statements of multiple shooters or hearing shots from different locations, many of them recanted their statements and pulled them back. And that is where people kind of shine the spotlight. That's where people kind of choose to focus. Obviously, there's something wrong, there's something fishy going on if after the government does their investigation, you take back your statement and you say that, no, actually, I don't know what I'm talking about. Something's wrong, something's up with that. And of course, people are going to point the finger there and say that this is something that would indicate that there's a general, broader conspiracy at play. And the fifth point, and probably one of the more controversial points for this conspiracy theory specifically, is that the CIA was involved. Now, if you notice a theme here, within all 3 of the conspiracy theories, the CIA is maybe or is definitely involved in that theory in order for it to be true. Now, with this specific theory, with the Mafia, with the mob, one thing to note, which is really important, is that the CIA was already very involved in covert operations with American Mafia, with American organized crime, as well as organized crime in other countries as well, like Cuba, which obviously at the time of JFK, that's a huge deal. That is something that's really, really noteworthy. So, of course, that's something that would kind of come under scrutiny once it comes uncovered and things get declassified and people start to learn about that. But yes, the CIA was involved in kind of investigating certain crime organizations by having guys on the inside. And if that's the case, then they obviously have the ability to influence these crime organizations to do something that they want. People kind of underestimate the power that the CIA has, but realistically, the CIA alone can bring down entire economies, can bring down entire countries if they really choose to do so. If you guys want me to talk about why the CIA is really shady and why we should all be really afraid of them, I could do that, but it might come at the cost of my life. I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out. It's up to you guys. If you guys want me to do that, just shoot me a DM or drop a comment below. But like I was saying, that's really the fifth point. Holds a little less ground, but there was some form of CIA involvement with the kind of the mafias, the gangs at the time anyways. So people are kind of shady and they're like, hey, I don't know, maybe the CIA was involved with this because they really didn't like JFK. So they could employ the mafia to take care of something like that. So there you have it. Those are kind of the 5 main points that make up the Mafia conspiracy theory. Now, to give you my own personal kind of look at this and what I think of it, I don't think that the Mafia is responsible for it. Now, is it possible that they were employed in some way to partake in it? I think it is possible. Do I think it's likely? I think it is likely. Do I think it happened? No. Why do I not think it happened? Because I think the CIA acted with Lyndon B. Johnson, and that is going to be in the 3rd, or I guess technically 4th part of the series. So you guys will have to wait for that one. But obviously, I'll give my personal opinions at the very end of it all. I don't want you guys to kind of have like any bias or anything like that going into any of these videos. But with that being said, everything we're talking about here is conspiracy. Now, obviously, there are things that hold a lot of weight. There's things that can be very true, and we just kind of have to take it for what it is at face value. But with that being said, you definitely want to be careful with what you're doing here. You don't want to go down the rabbit hole and then get your brain all messed up and you just start thinking all these crazy things. We're just looking at conspiracy theories. We're looking at things that are not proven to be true, and obviously, we don't know with 100% certainty whether or not everything I've gone over actually happened or not. It's just concerns that people have raised. One last thing I wanted to bring up, and you're gonna see why this is really important in the next video, which is just specifically about the CIA. But the phrase conspiracy theory only became popular and relevant after the JFK assassination. It was not a phrase that was used regularly for things that were considered conspiracy theories. The CIA was absolutely involved in pushing this out and making sure that anybody who was deemed a quote-unquote conspiracy theorist would be looked down upon by the public, would be looked upon in a kind of like a negative view. It's just like, oh, this is a crazy guy. So obviously that's going to make a huge impact on anybody who has any form of solid claim if it falls outside of what the Warren Commission report states. So if they're saying something that doesn't fall within the Warren Commission report, then they're a conspiracy theorist. And obviously the CIA did a really good job of making conspiracy theorists the bad guys. So take that how you will. I'm going to end the video here. Of course, I'll see you guys in the next one. I don't know when it's dropping, but hopefully within this week. It's going to be focused on the CIA. It's going to be part 3 of the series. But yeah, I'll see you guys then.